Imagine standing in a battlefield, thousands of soldiers charging toward you, and all you have is one machine. You pull the trigger once, and it doesn't stop. In minutes, the battlefield is silent. This isn't a scene from a movie. This is the moment war changed forever. This is the story of the Maxim gun. In the late 19th century, war was still a deeply human affair. Soldiers marched in formation, standing shoulder to shoulder as they advanced across open fields. Battles were chaotic, loud, and brutal, but they relied on human strength, human courage, and human limits. Weapons had to be reloaded by hand. Muskets and rifles fired one shot at a time. And even in the heat of battle, there were pauses, moments where both sides caught their breath. War, for all its horror, still had a rhythm, a beginning, a clash, and sometimes a chance to recover. But that rhythm was about to disappear forever. Because in 1884, a single invention would change everything. It was created by a man named Hiram Maxim. Born in 1840 in the United States, Maxim grew up in a world that was rapidly transforming. The Industrial Revolution was reshaping society. Machines were replacing manual labor, and new inventions were appearing at a pace never seen before. Maxim fit perfectly into that world. He was curious, relentless, and endlessly creative. Before he ever built the machine gun, he worked on a wide range of inventions: electric lighting systems, engines, even early flying machines. He wasn't focused on war, he was focused on innovation. But innovation doesn't choose its consequences. When Maxim moved to England, he found himself surrounded by competition, ambition, and opportunity. It was there that he was encouraged, half seriously, half jokingly, to create something that could make warfare more efficient, more deadly. And unlike many others, Maxim had both the imagination and the skill to make that idea real. What he created was not just a better weapon, it was a completely new kind of weapon. The Maxim gun was the world's first fully automatic machine gun. Earlier rapid-fire weapons existed, but they relied on human input, turning a crank, pulling a lever, constantly reloading. They were limited by the person operating them. Maxim removed that limitation. His gun used recoil, the backward force created when a bullet is fired, to automatically load the next round and fire again. The energy of one shot powered the next, creating a continuous cycle. As long as the trigger was held down, the gun would not stop. It could fire around 600 rounds per minute, and perhaps even more terrifying than its speed was its consistency. It didn't panic, it didn't rush, it didn't hesitate. It simply fired, again and again and again. To keep it from overheating, Maxim designed a water cooling system around the barrel, allowing it to sustain fire far longer than any weapon before it. Mounted on a tripod and operated by a small team, it could dominate an entire battlefield. For the first time in history, one machine could replace dozens of soldiers. At first, many military leaders didn't fully grasp what they were seeing. It was impressive, certainly, but it was still just a weapon, or so they thought. The truth revealed itself in the brutal reality of colonial warfare. Across Africa and other regions, European forces equipped with Maxim guns faced opponents who often relied on traditional weapons and sheer numbers. For generations, numerical superiority had been a powerful advantage in battle, but the Maxim gun erased that advantage almost instantly. One of the clearest and most devastating examples came in 1898 at the Battle of Omdurman. Tens of thousands of Sudanese warriors advanced toward British forces. They were determined, courageous, and vastly outnumbered their enemy. In another time, that might have been enough, but this was not another time. As the charge began, the Maxim guns opened fire. The sound was unlike anything the battlefield had heard before. Not individual shots, but a continuous stream of gunfire. A mechanical roar that did not pause, did not slow, did not stop. Men fell in waves before they could even get close. By the end of the battle, over 10,000 Sudanese fighters had been killed. The British lost fewer than 50 men. It was not a contest of equals, it was a glimpse into the future of war, and that future had no place for traditional tactics. As the Maxim gun spread across the world, nations began to understand its true power. Armies changed, strategies evolved, and when World War I began in 1914, machine guns were no longer rare, they were everywhere. But even then, the world was not ready. At the beginning of the war, soldiers marched with confidence. Many believed the war would be over quickly. They carried their rifles, wore bright uniforms, and followed tactics that had worked for generations. Then they stepped onto battlefields shaped by machine guns. Advancing troops were cut down in seconds. Entire units disappeared under relentless fire. A single machine gun properly positioned could stop hundreds of men, and it did, over and over again. The open battlefield became a death trap, so the soldiers dug into the ground. Trenches stretched across Europe for hundreds of miles, creating a new kind of war, one defined not by movement, but by stagnation. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into years. Mud, fear, and the constant threat of sudden death became part of everyday life. And above it all, the machine guns waited. Any attempt to advance was met with devastating fire. Soldiers climbed out of trenches knowing that many of them would not make it more than a few steps. The Maxim gun hadn't just made war more deadly, it had made it inescapable. Millions of lives were lost in this new kind of warfare, not in moments of glory, but in long, drawn-out battles where survival itself became the only objective. And beyond the physical destruction, there was something else, a psychological shift. War was no longer about facing your enemy directly. It was no longer about individual acts of bravery deciding the outcome. Now, death could come from a distance, delivered by a machine you might never even see. The sound of a machine gun became a symbol of helplessness, a reminder that courage alone was no longer enough. Because how do you fight something that doesn't feel? In the years that followed, the legacy of the Maxim gun only grew. It inspired new designs, new technologies, and new ways of fighting. Machine guns became lighter, faster, more mobile. They were mounted on vehicles, aircraft, and eventually became a standard part of every modern military. But every one of those advancements traces back to a single idea, a single invention, a single moment in 1884. Hiram Maxim set out to create something powerful, and he succeeded. But like many inventions, its impact reached far beyond what anyone could have imagined. The Maxim gun didn't just change weapons, it changed war itself. It marked the moment when warfare became industrial, when machines, efficiency, and mass production began to define how conflicts were fought and won. And it left behind a question that still lingers today. Just because we can create something, does that mean we should? Because once the first trigger was pulled, there was no going back. And that's the story of the Maxim gun, the invention that changed war forever. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more historical documentaries just like this. And let me know in the comments, what piece of history should we explore next? Thanks for watching.